welcome in everyone. We appreciate you taking the time to be here today with us. This is a very come as you are session, so we're just happy to have you here. We realize that a lot of you guys are on your lunch hour right now. So whether you're tuning in via headphones while you're eating some lunch, or maybe you're listening while you're driving, we're just so glad to have you and that you're here. And this session is being recorded, so if you need to hop in and out, no worries. We get it. So you will be receiving a copy of this video recording via email, as well as some of the extra information we have for you guys at the end. So probably give us a few days. So by the end of the week. And then just as we get started, some housekeeping. We definitely want to thank our interpreters that we have here today. I mentioned this a couple minutes ago, but if you have language interpretation, go ahead and hover over the globe. It's at the bottom of the Zoom, and it might be under the More section. And it will pop up some of the offered languages that we have. And I believe today we have Spanish and Farsi available. So thank you to those helping interpret. And then here we have it's going to be a safe and inclusive space. So there is no wrong questions. We just ask that if you do have any questions regarding your specific child, that you just reach out to us directly via email. That way it can just help maintain confidentiality for your kiddos. And so today, this is part 1 of 4 of a Lunch and Learn series that we have on elementary level executive functioning. And today specifically, we're going to be covering self-control and self-awareness. And this whole presentation series is a collaboration between El Morro, Top of the World, and then our Laguna Beach Family Resource Center. And if you guys don't know about the Resource Center, it's a really fantastic hub for all things resources available to our students and families in the district. All right, so we can hop to the next slide. All right, so here are our faces. I know you see us on the top screen over here, but my name is Tristan Nguyen. I'm the El Morro Student Support Specialist, and that's a member of the mental health team, and we really focus on the social emotional supports for students and families. And I also work at the Resource Center on Wednesdays, so once a week. And I'll go ahead and pass it on to my co-host.
Hi, everyone. I see some familiar faces and names. And for those of you who are new, my name is Miss Amelia Miscioni. I'm the school social worker at Top of the World Elementary, again, being part of the wellness team, providing mental health support to students and families. And then I am at the Family Resource Center on Tuesdays, once a week, to provide parent education and community resources. And we're very excited to be here today.
All right. And so as we get started today, I just wanted to quickly go over our Laguna Beach Unified Learner Profile. And this really is just a framework that grounds all the work that we do here in the district. So it really helps guide our work by kind of outlining the outcomes, what we really want to instill in our students to be successful. And, this is not only in the classroom, but also as they become productive members of society. And so this is kind of a perfect setup for our discussion on executive functioning today, because you kind of see some of the skills outlined here, such as collaborator and problem solver and communicator. So this is a perfect segue into what we're going to be talking about. All right, so, and we're going to go ahead and go on to our agenda. So this session is going to be about 45 minutes of learning. And then at the end, we're going to have a Q&A and open forum. So that's kind of the point. If you got to head out, no worries. But we'll be on for about 15 minutes, kind of going over some questions and answers. But really, we're here just to be kind of going over self-control and awareness for elementary level kids and what that may look like in that age group. And what you guys are all here for, which is just strategies to be able to use to help support the classroom and in home as well. We just ask that if you please just remain on mute unless otherwise stated, because we may have a little share out. And then just if you do have any comments or thoughts, we would love to hear them. Please just go ahead and place them in the chat. And we're going to be monitoring this as the session goes on. And then if you do have any questions, we'll do our best to kind of address them as we go. But if we don't get time to, we'll make sure to write them all down, and they will be answered in the next session that we have. And then for our learning objectives, um, we have them listed here. There's 3 of them. Feel free just to take a moment to sort of look over and review them. We're just hoping that you leave here today with a better understanding of what self-awareness, regulation, and control is and how that can apply to your specific child. Because, and you will hear us say this a couple times as we go through, every child is different. So it may appear in different ways for different kids. And then just to leave here with some practical strategies that you guys can use at home today to help improve these skills. And our overall goal is just to help provide you guys and your child with effective tools that can help build up their own toolbox when navigating different life situations. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Miss Amelia.
Great, thank you. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us. Let's get started into what exactly is executive functioning. It's kind of become a buzzword, but it means a lot of different things. We can think of executive functioning as our brain's management system. So it's coordinating all our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions. It helps us stay organized and focused, and it overall guides how we plan, prioritize, and get things done. But you can see this big wheel here where there's a bunch of different skill areas, and we can sometimes think of executive functioning as something different in each developmental level. Like early childhood, it's a lot of emotional regulation because that's when we're seeing a big increase of like tantrums and learning how to self-soothe. But as we move into maybe upper elementary, like 4th and 5th grade, even to the transition to middle school, maybe planning and prioritizing and organization become the forefront because you're moving from 1 teacher to now 6 teachers. So all of that to say, executive functioning is expansive and it's ever changing. It's also tied to our frontal lobe, which you might have heard that takes maybe up into 20 years old or later to fully develop. So as we're getting older, we're building these skills. So all of that to say, it's okay if we're not a master of every single one of these skills. It's all about finding the tools to fill in the gaps. So what does this look like specifically in elementary students? It can look like staying focused and attentive, following instructions carefully, staying organized and managing your materials, remembering and following routines, planning ahead, completing tasks, and what we're going to talk about today, managing emotions and controlling impulses. So I want to take a moment to reflect, and I want you to think about what brought you here today. With some of the things that I just mentioned, are any of these resonating with you? And what are you seeing in your student? I would love to open up the chat if you guys have a moment to type in what brought you here today. What are you hoping to gain from this for your student? Thank you, Morgan. I see you working on impulse control with your boys. Definitely. Impulse control. That's great to know we're all here for the same thing.
I see.
And be a better parent. I love that, Vivian. Thank you.
Behaviors at home, managing emotions, self-regulation. That more impulse control. I've seen the trend here.
Yes, it's good to know we're all in the same spot.
Yes. All right. Staying focused.
Okay, awesome. Thank you all for sharing. I can resonate with this. I can remember, and I'm sure you can too, remember times where maybe you needed help with executive functioning. I'll share a quick anecdote about myself is when I was in kindergarten, when my mom would pick me up, she would notice that my name was always on the board, like consistently for 1 week. And she asked me, she goes, Milio, do you notice that your name is on the board? Like, why do you think that is? And I said, I know. The teacher just loves to write my name. So I say all of this to share with you that like kids who might be struggling in this area might be seeming unmotivated or defiant, but actually they just need explicit teaching and practice for self-management skills. So in my case, it was not connecting, that I was maybe lagging in transitions or following directions. But sure enough, with some guidance and some skill building, I was able to. The reason that my name was on the board was because I was not transitioning from the playground. So the quick adjustment of me being the line leader was able to fix that defiance. And I've heard various other funny stories from parents who are struggling to develop this awareness in their kids. So this is just a reminder to stay the course. It's an opportunity to teach rather than discipline your child. So I put this up here: self-awareness, self-regulation, and control. Oh my, it's like there's so many buzzwords that we hear when it comes to this topic. So I wanted to break it down a little bit more because this helps you to really narrow down what it is you want your child to develop, as well as see how they all work together. So when we think of self-awareness, the skill focus is just noticing. You're noticing what you're feeling, you're noticing those warning signs, and you're noticing the emotion building up. So the goal is insight. An example of this is noticing your heart is beating fast and your shoulders are feeling tight. So, okay, I think I'm starting to feel angry. When it comes to self-regulation, the focus is managing your feelings. You're trying to get balance and control of what's coming up for you. So, for example, I'm feeling sleepy and weighed down. So, I'm going to regulate myself by doing some jumping jacks and some stretches to wake my body up. This is mostly what we think of when we think of coping tools. We do a coping tool to regulate our emotions. And then lastly, once we have that awareness and that regulation, then that's when self-control really comes to the forefront. And that focus is acting wisely and making smart choices. And it's obviously a lot easier to make smart choices once you're already regulated. We know that when we're in fight or flight, we're not using our thinking brain. So that's why the regulation and awareness part are so important. So the goal of self-control is discipline and follow through. And what this would look like is I'm angry and my impulse is that I want to yell, but I know that'll only make things worse. So I'll control my tone and speak more calmly. So when you think about what this looks like, self-awareness is noticing the storm, self-regulation is calming the storm, and self-control is choosing how to steer through it. So what this could look like in your child. Again, we're going to share the slides with you. I know there's a lot of words on here, but I'll just share a few examples so you can, again, piece it together of what each of these skills are. Self-awareness at school could look like noticing when they're feeling overwhelmed or distracted, or recognizing that they've made a mistake and trying again. At home, it could be expressing, I need help during moments of frustration and knowing when it's time to take a break. For self-regulation, at school, it can look like taking some deep breaths when feeling frustrated with schoolwork, or using positive self-talk like, I can try again, I got this, when something feels hard. And at home, it could be having a calm corner or taking some time in their room when they're starting to feel upset instead of arguing, or asking for help when they feel overwhelmed instead of shutting down. In regards to self-control, at school, it can look like waiting their turn to speak or play, or keeping their hands and body to themselves when they're in line. And at home, it can look like listening without interrupting, maybe managing their excitement, like not shouting during a movie. And I want to make a point that, again, the elementary years are the prime time for learning emotional regulation. So it's completely normal if your child isn't there yet. And the goal isn't to stop emotions or avoid reactions. It's just all about learning to ride the waves and accept feelings as part of being human, and then making the right choice. And we see most growth in this area between ages 3 to 7. So you're helping lay the foundation now. And again, even just noticing and feeling emotions is an important skill. So I want to ask out, now that you've looked at this list of examples of what self-awareness, regulation, and control can look like, I want you to write in the chat, what is one thing that your child right now is really good at? What is like a strength that you can already pick apart from these examples? Go ahead and take a moment and think, what is your child already showing growth in and strength in. Nice. I see self-awareness, listening, calming down. That's awesome.
Following directions.
Empathy, that's huge.
Awesome.
Repairing a relationship or repairing an environment, that's awesome.
I see strong self-control.
Mm.
More self-control. Ooh, apologizing, that's a really big one.
Yeah, thank you everyone for sharing, because I wanted to point out that we might have strengths in one area, but need improvement in another. And so then it can feel like, oh my gosh, I'm making progress in this, but then I'm 2 steps backwards on that. But they interact with each other. And again, we're just finding ways to make improvements on those other areas while celebrating the strengths in others. And I see that all the time in my counseling and in conversations with teachers where they're like, okay, they're really good about taking belly breaths, but they still have a big reaction when it first happens. So it's like they can calm down, but it takes a minute to get to that spot. And so it's just about, knowing their strengths. Thank you everyone for sharing. Okay, so now for the meat, what we're all here for. So let's talk about some strategies. So strategy 1 is modeling calm responses and thinking processes. That's a mouthful, just to say, you are your child's first and most powerful teacher. So children learn skills best when we teach and practice and model them in real life. So I'm calling to action that you partner with your child and grow and learn together. I want you to think about and be honest about the messages that you might send to your kids. We might want them to stay calm when things don't go their way, but then they see us get frustrated when we're in that similar situation or when we're stressed. We expect them to follow routines, but then we don't have consistency ourselves. So kids learn far more from what we do than what we say, but they also both work together. So we want to make sure that we're strengthening that relationship between what we do and what we say. When they see us working on patience, self-control, and follow through, they learn that mistakes are okay and growth is something that we do together as a family. And overall, just thinking about how children learn, children are very naturally curious. They often ask a million questions like, why did you do that? Or why did this happen? And so, or sometimes they just simply observe and they're taking in their environment. So I want you to remember to take those moments to talk it out with them and also to lead by example. So what this can look like. It can look like thinking aloud when you're upset. Maybe you're in traffic, we've all been there, and it's just so irritating. And you can just actually say it out loud to your kid, like, oh, traffic is so slow. I'm feeling so irritated. I can feel my body getting tense. So I'm going to take a few deep breaths to calm down. This is sending the message to your kid that emotions are normal. I can recognize them without losing control. Secondly, you can make time for self-care. Maybe you just verbalize to your kid, oh, mommy's had such a busy day. I think I'm gonna go do some stretches to relax. Do you wanna join me? So you can invite them in. And as you're doing your stretches, you're like, oh, it just feels so good to release all this tension and all this stress. This is sending a message that taking care of yourself is essential and that we make an effort as a family to take care of your mind and body every day. And then another way that you can practice this modeling of thinking processes is modeling problem solving out loud. Maybe you're feeling overwhelmed and you're just like, oh, it's been such a tough week. I'm feeling overwhelmed with everything I need to do. Let me think this through. Okay, I have to do this and this and this. Okay, my prescription is right across the street from the grocery store. I think I'll do this first and then that first. Okay, I'm feeling better now that I've mapped it out. So this sends the message that I can pause, think, and plan instead of reacting automatically, instead of just being like, oh, I have so much to do. I don't know how I'm going to get it done, and then just not end up getting it done. So I want to also acknowledge that this can sound a little silly and a little cringy. It reminds me of work trainings when you learn something and they're like, okay, now turn to your partner and role play. And everyone's like moaning, like, oh, that just feels so unnatural. But this is how kids learn. So I'm telling you this to just, even though it's cringy or it might feel a little weird, to stay the course because they really are absorbing all of this information. I, for example, do this a lot in my work with kiddos where I have a kindergarten student right now. I'm working on emotional regulation, and I will purposely talk out loud or set up situations where I'm getting frustrated and I'm talking it out like, oh, this block isn't fitting where I need it to go. I'm just going to take a deep breath and try again. And I literally take a deep breath. Oh, okay, I feel a lot better. Now I can do it really calmly. So I'm over explaining. It doesn't sound supernatural, but for kids, that's how they best learn. And sure enough, later in the week, when I observed her in class, she couldn't open a Play-Doh and she was starting to get frustrated. And in the past has just like thrown it across the room. But I noticed that she just like was struggling, paused, took a deep breath on her own, and then asked for help. And so that's just going to show that they're making those connections and they're trying things based on what they learn in their environment. So over explaining is honestly key, and just modeling that for your kids. Okay, now let's move into strategy number 2, moments to pause. This is really focusing on the skill of self-awareness. I have this visual. This concept is from a book by Dan Siegel. He's an amazing child psychologist that specializes in child development and emotional regulation. He has this book called Now Maps Junior, and the focus is all on pausing and really focusing on your feelings. Because when you feel your feelings, that's what really self-awareness is. You're noticing these feelings build up. You're noticing your environment. That's pretty much the one way through your emotion, through your feelings. And I think often kids might rush to the coping skill and then not feel better. And it's because they're missing that element of needing to pause. But the pause helps with self-awareness, but this can also tie into self-control, where we're pausing before we act. So how this works: first, you press the pause button. So you can have like a visual prop, or sometimes I just have kids, okay, we're gonna press pause. And the goal is to pause when you notice these feelings bottling up, when your student is starting to lose control. And I feel like you parents are such good emotion whisperers. I have parents tell me all the time, like, oh no, that's their nervous laugh. Like they're laughing, but I know that they feel nervous right now. Or that's their annoyed face. Like if I don't step in right now, they're probably gonna lose it. So that's the moment where we're observing our kid and we're being able to press the pause button before emotions become too big and out of control, just so that kids can take a moment to think about what is happening in their body as these emotions are boiling up. Next, once you've paused, you can use your focus flashlight, and I have like a little mini flashlight in my office. Props are great to help build the skill, but they can shine it in on their heart or their tummy or their head. And with their focus flashlight, they're thinking of an emotion word that pairs with their body sensations. My heart's beating really fast. Okay, I think I'm feeling nervous. Or my face is getting so red, it feels like my head's on fire. I'm feeling angry. So we're taking a moment to pause and then express the emotion. And then lastly, they're using their okay monitor. Am I green, good to go? Yellow, I'm almost not okay. Or I'm in the red and I need to focus on calming down. So again, this is just a good way to create moments of pause. And the key here is that going back to strategy 1, I would love for you guys to model it with your kids. So you can be like, pause, mommy needs a pause before I think of my next step. Or you can make it fun and be like, pause and hit a pose, and then to build compliance, anything to make it fun. You can even do it and incorporate it during pickup. I know the first question when you pick up your kid is, hey, how was your day? But maybe you incorporate this of the pause, focus flashlight, and that'll tell you a lot about their day. Like after their focus flashlight, they could say, I'm feeling sad. Tell me about your day. What made you feel sad? So it's something already that you're doing, but you're now incorporating this new strategy of the moments to pause. And once you build this compliance, even when they're having a good moment, maybe they're coloring and doing a preferred activity, still pause button, focus flashlight, you're feeling happy. I love that. Keep doing your drawing. Because once you do that, when they're regulated, you'll have more success when they're starting to get dysregulated, that they'll be able to pause. So we're building this in even when they're regulated in order to build compliance. I have a quick video for you that kind of ties these two moments together that I think you guys will find funny. Go ahead and play it.
Are you kidding? That's unfair. She made those. I need to calm down. Everything's fine.
Amanda.
I'm an adult.
Okay, this kind of went viral on social media and it immediately reminded me of this because you can see that she was starting to lose control and she said, whoa, hold on, I need a pause. It wasn't that serious. I need to calm down. When I talk about self-awareness, this is essentially what I'm talking about. She's seeing those warning signs. She was starting to raise her voice and she said, whoa, okay, I need to take a step back. So hopefully that inspires you and that's something that you could be looking for. And that's an example of modeling it for your kids too. Okay, I'm gonna pass it on to Tristan.
All righty, you guys. So for our next strategy, I want you guys to take a moment, think back to when you were a kid and what are some of the games that you like to play. So go ahead and share them out in the little chat over here. And as those are coming in, I'll kind of share about me. I used to really love to do pretend play. So I was really into like Polly Pockets. I don't know if you remember those, or Barbies. And so one of the things, and we're going to talk about skill building here, is that I really had to practice my patience because with these Barbies, I would have like a whole storyline already brought out into my head. And I was like, we're doing Malibu Barbie by the pool right now. But if I was playing with a friend who wanted to do Barbie doctor, that would really throw me off because I had a full narrative already planned out for our games. So it would take a lot of patience to kind of work together with my friends. And that was kind of a skill that I had to learn. I was also super into arts and board games and stuff like that. So it was very fun. I see a lot of Barbies in the chat as well. Um, Going outside, hula hoops. I love that. Arts and crafts. That's awesome. Okay, so for our skill right here, we're talking about learning through play. And I really like to call this undercover learning because it's really things that you do in your daily life. And so it's a great transfer of knowledge to the everyday tasks that kids are doing. And it's perfect for elementary level kids because it's very age appropriate and it really just reflects their current world experiences that they're having. So you'll see kind of some of the examples I have down here. I have arts and crafts. And really, this is helping to build focus and that self control piece, especially because it involves a lot of fine motor skills. I had a student in my office the other day, and we were making an art piece, and he was trying to glue down something really fluffy. And it actually takes a lot of patience to be able to set that down and put it in the right place. So that's a great example. Simon Says is a really fun, calming game, and it's really building on the skill of listening without interruption and also that cognitive processing and being able to regulate your emotions because there's a lot of excitement in that game and disappointment when maybe you get it wrong and you actually Simon didn't say, and that can be really frustrating for a lot of kids. So building that capacity up. Jenga or Operation is another one. Operation is kind of a little bit difficult for me because it once it goes off, it kind of makes me go off too. But that's a really great example of handling losing and focusing and utilizing those coping skills. Especially with Jenga, this is probably the most commonly loved game in my office. And I actually have at least 3 sets, I think, just because pieces get lost. But it's a really good one I like to use with students when we're practicing the skill of losing because the physical breaking of the Jenga can also kind of make you feel like you're like, oh, I lost, right? So that's a great way to practice that skill. And then freeze dance is really popular with the littles. And it's really good for body awareness and control, learning how to control your body and stop moving, especially because they get really like stimulated and excited, and then you have to really practice stopping and controlling yourself. And also listening because you're listening for the music and then you're listening for when it stops, right? And so when you're doing these games at home, it really is just a simple mind shift on how you're viewing and discussing the games that you guys are playing that really help the kids kind of stop and think about what the skills that they're doing are. So as Amelia did a fantastic job of mentioning, this is a perfect time to model that appropriate behavior. And this tool can be really, really powerful. And like she said, kids learn through copying. So they learn through you as parents, and they also learn through other students in the classroom. So maybe they'll see a kid on task and they want to, oh, I also need to be on task, right? And so as you're playing these games, you can narrate as you go along. A good example is you're like, oh, man, I pulled a red card and I really needed the green card to win this game. And you know what? That's okay. You win some, you lose some. Let's just try another round. And so you're actually out loud modeling that how you handled losing and that it's okay. And so also narrating with positive praise. This is really fun one. So narrating techniques that their kids are utilizing through this. So an example of this would be, oh, I love how you patiently waited for your turn. And like we kind of said before, it may feel silly at first because you're actually narrating the task that you're doing, but the positive feedback really does work for kids. And you may have heard of this rule. It's called the 1 in 5 rule. So every one negative comment, you want to make sure that you have 5 positive to go along with it, just to help build a positive relationship. And this really helps kiddos like want to work and want to do better because they're always hearing that positive feedback, and it's like exciting to hear. And then discussing and reflecting afterwards. Use the games at the end as a time to reflect and discuss how things went. So if the game went really well and the kid was doing really great listening and they handled losing okay, you could ask them, what strategy did you use while we were playing that helped you stay calm and in control? And that actually causes the child to stop and think, what did I do? Wow, I really did do a good job of listening. And they're like, and they'll really share with you what they got to do. And if they don't know off the top of the head, it kind of gives them a time to think and reflect on what they did that was really well. Or maybe it didn't go well, and that's okay too. You can stop and think, what can we do differently next time? You're like, I noticed that it might have been a little bit challenging when you were interrupting. You're like, what can we try next time to maybe end that, right? And then that can help set you up for maybe a second game where you're focusing on that specific skill of not interrupting and then guide you through that next round. Alrighty. Our next one here is regulating emotions. So this is a great way to get this started with your own specific child is exploring what we call triggers. And triggers are like the events, the situations, people that really like spark we call them big feelings in elementary school. So thinking about your own specific experiences and what really might trigger you to feel really angry in a moment, right? And when we think about academics, a really popular one or common one that you'll see with students is maybe test taking. Test taking can bring up a lot of anxious feelings in some kids. Some kids, it totally doesn't affect them. Other common triggers in school could be difficult subjects. So maybe your child is really great at math, but reading is really hard for them. So anytime a reading situation comes up, that may trigger a big emotion. And this can transfer into home. So you may see this at home when it's time to come sit down and do homework, right? And if reading is really hard for them, they may fight you on the 30 minutes of reading that they have to do each night. And so that can, stopping and reflecting and thinking about what may trigger them is important in that first step of learning to regulate your emotions. You'll see that we have on here, it says stop, name your feeling, calm down. And this is the terminology that we use in schools. We have a curriculum that we utilize for social emotional, which is called Second Step. And in Second Step, they have like a whole dance, but it's basically stop, and then you put your hands on your head and you name your feeling, and then you calm down. All right, and Miss Amelia started to kind of talk about this with the flashlight, and that's that whole self-awareness piece of the stop. So it's used to promote self-awareness and stop the emotion from escalating. So if it goes, the stop pause is really that first step. And we really hope that maybe like stopping and kind of naming that feeling can sort of mitigate it from moving any further, but sometimes it doesn't. And so that's when we would want to name that feeling and I really identify that emotion before we blow up or in school here, we call it flipping our lid. So students will take their hand and put it right next to their head. And oh my goodness, sometimes our feelings grow and grow until we've absolutely flipped our lid. And so we really hope to stop it before it gets to that point. But once we stop it and then name that feeling, then that's when we want to calm down. And that's when we get into coping skills and self-regulation. And we discuss this a lot in schools. I can go on and on about this for days. But if we just keep it short and simple, coping skills can look really different at home versus at school, kind of based off of the accessibility of the things that you have around you. Like in schools, a lot of our classrooms and in our counseling offices, we have what would be called a calm down corner, which is an actual space that students can go to where they sit down and they can utilize different strategies around them. In my office, we have like a really soft rug and a grass wall that they can touch and just different resources. You may have a calm down corner in your house and you may not. That's not something that everybody may have, so that may not be something that's accessible to you. Maybe you have a pool in your house and that's like a really great sensory stimulation calm down thing you can have. I can promise you we don't have a school or a pool at our elementary school, so that's not really an option, right? So kind of thinking about what you have and what's accessible to you, and then figuring out what those coping strategies that work in your home are. And like I said, every kid is different. Certain coping strategies work really well with some, and then it may not work for other kids at all. So if you're looking to have some coping skill strategies to have for your kiddos at school, we highly recommend you're collaborating with your kid's classroom teacher, as well as a social emotional support staff. I know that Miss Amelia and myself are always happy to connect with parents to help build out plans for when kids have these really strong emotions. So we're always willing to help with that. If we can go ahead and hop onto the next slide really quick, I wanted to show. This is an emotions chart. And you actually, if you may or may not have yet received a copy of this specific emotion identification chart, and we send this home along with a little goodie that I'll get to in a bit. But if you RSVP'd within the last few days, you may not have got it. Check in your child's backpack tonight. And if you have not received it yet, please let us know because we're really excited to be passing these out and happy to get it to you. But this chart right here lists off a ton of different emotions. And you may notice the colors. And I won't go too deep into this, but we do have something called the zones of regulation. And essentially, it's just a way for kids to sort of put their feelings into colors, which makes them a little bit easier to identify. So green is happy feelings. Blue is like more sad or low energy feelings. Yellow means we're starting to lose control, and maybe that's kind of where anxiety or embarrassment live. And then red means we've lost control. We're feeling really angry or frustrated, right? And so when we think back to feelings identification with the pause and then flashlight when you look into your tummy or your heart, kids may not necessarily have the vocabulary to say what they're feeling. And so sometimes these feeling charts are really helpful just to have on hand because they may be like, oh, like I'm sad, but really they're actually feeling really lonely, or maybe they're just bored, right? And that is a different feeling. Or like they're kind of annoyed, but they actually are really frustrated, which is a bigger feeling than just annoyed, right? So these charts are really useful in helping, especially the younger ones, identify where they're at. And then for our next one, I've got a couple of examples of some coping skills. And mind you, there are hundreds and hundreds of different kinds. So it's important just to consult with your kiddos and test out different ones. Mostly when they're in their calm state, because that helps them kind of process what they like. And then sometimes when we're in a really heightened state, I know that when I get like really frustrated, practicing a new skill might be too much for me to even handle in that moment. So trying and testing out different ones when they're more of a calm state can be really helpful, and just to start that dialogue up on what really works for them. And like I said, what works for some may not work for others. And so on here, I have journaling or drawing. This is really fantastic for our creative kiddos. I know a lot of students at our school love to draw. Um, so that's kind of something that they may utilize and will say, you know, I see you're really frustrated. Maybe you can take a pen and paper and go sit outside for 5 minutes and draw a picture just to reset. And that works for some. A really common one that we have is deep breathing. We like to call this belly breathing. So you take your hands and place them on your belly, and then you take a deep breath in through your nose, hold for 5, and then breathe out for 5. And then they actually, when their hands are on their belly, they feel their belly expanding and contracting, and that's really helpful. Counting to 10 is another great one just to sort of reset your brain. Fidgets and stress balls, I'm sure you have a ton of these laying around at your house because that's kind of the it toy for the last couple of years. But they actually do serve a really like important purpose, and it can help utilize their hands and sort of reset whatever they're feeling at the time. And we do have these, I have a ton of these in my office that kids are able to come over, use, and then go back to whatever they need to do. Another great one is honestly basic needs. Sometimes when you're feeling a really big feeling, you may just need to go take a moment and take a sip of cold water. That's really helpful. Or eating a healthy snack. Another really like great hack is if you take fruit juice and then freeze them into cute little shapes. That actual freezing cold sensation can help actually trigger your brain to reset and reflip. So frozen juice is a really fun one, and kids love the taste of juice. But if they're really small, it's really nice. All right, and the last one I have on here is a positive self-talk. We have a really fun affirmation station in my office where kids can go up and they can say phrases to themselves like, I am strong, I am smart, I got this. And I think sometimes that's just a really great reminder to ourselves that, you know, I'm standing here and I'm taking this really like intense test, but you know what? I got this. And so that is really powerful, the words in our brain that we use. So before we switch the slide, because it might play automatically, I want to talk a little bit about bubble breathing. So if you haven't received it yet, we sent home a pack of bubbles with you guys. And on it, we have instructions. So it's a really great coping skill for kids to use to demonstrate deep breathing, and it's in a really fun and age-appropriate way. And I actually have a clip of one of our kiddos showing us how to do it, so we'll go ahead and play that for you guys right now. Might need to okay.
This is how you bubble breathe. Breathe in, hold it, breathe out.
So cute. Yes, so when you have the kiddos, you would want to take them, you could do it inside or outside, just depending. I usually like to go outside just because the fresh air is always really nice. We'll go outside, we take our bubbles, you dip the wand in, you take it out, take a deep breath, hold for 5, breathe out for 5. And it may take a couple of times, but that's a really great way to reset when we're having these big emotions. So we hope that you guys utilize them at home and give it a try with your kiddos, and hopefully it'll be beneficial for you.
I wanted to add one thing really quick,
Yes,
Kristen,
please.
with the bubble breathing is because I know you might have heard deep breaths, and a lot of kids know, like, oh, I know when I'm having this emotion, I need to take a deep breath. I try and that doesn't work, and they feel discouraged. The bubble breathing is a great way to redirect them to keep trying it, because you can show them, like, when I rush my breath, like when I just go, I'm not going to get any bubbles. The seal is going to break and there's going to be no bubbles. But when I take my time and really intentionally deep breath in and slowly out, then I have the benefits of this giant bubble party. So that really helps put it into perspective what deep breathing actually is for kids, because again, they just take a big huff and puff and they say, I tried it, it doesn't work. But when we slow down, then they're able to see how slowing down really helps.
Thank you so much for that. Okay, so on here we have mindfulness techniques, and I want to make sure I can get through this pretty quickly just to make sure that we give you guys time at the end to sort of share out your thoughts. But mindfulness is essentially paying attention to the present moment without judgment of yourself. And this can actually be quite hard sometimes because we're so moving and going. But being present in that moment can be really powerful. And it's a really great way to recenter yourself and reset your attentions and sort of where your focus is, right? So I've got a couple of examples on here. We have get moving and going for a walk. I think this is one of my favorite strategies to use with our kids. Let's just go reset and move our bodies and take a walk. And there's fun ways to do this. You can do a color walk where you walk around and you find something of each rainbow color as you go. You can also do the same thing with the five senses or play I Spy. But it's a great way to kind of focus in on what's really around you. Stretching and movement breaks are also one of my favorite strategies to use, especially for kids that have a lot of energy. It's a great way to kind of centralize that and focus it into one place. So I commonly suggest wall push-ups. Legs up on the wall is another great one where you're having your back on the wall. We don't realize how much tension is on our feet for the entire day when we're moving. So having our pressure off of our feet can be really helpful by putting our legs up. Squats, jumping jacks, short runs are also really beneficial for kiddos that have a lot of energy that they need to get out in order to refocus and reset. Sensory input tools are also really great. These are more like putty, is really great for the hands. Sand trays, I know that can be kind of messy, so keeping that in a contained spot. Kids also really like beans. That's another great way to reset. Squish pillows, squishmallows, hammocks. A lot of houses, you guys might have a hammock at your house. That's another great place to go take a break. Put them in the hammock, let them swing, and just reset their nervous system. Um, Guided imagery is where you go through and you talk about a story. I have a picture of a Hawaiian sunset because a lot of kids like to visualize the beach. And that kind of almost transports you right to another place. Body scans where we think about our sensations from head to toe. And then muscle relaxation is another great one where we tense up, really tense, and then we release. And that's an actual physical release of all that tension. And that really can help reset ourselves. Just a really quick pro tip. You want to go ahead, Miss Amelia?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Tristan, for all those amazing strategies. So again, pro tip, praise for effort, even if the strategy is still in progress. So as we mentioned a few times, when we see the desired behavior, we see our kids trying, even if it's not perfect, we're not expecting them to be perfect, mindful yogis all the time. That is so unrealistic. But when they're making that effort to name their emotion, when you see them practicing a deep breath, when you see them take a break and do some stretches, we are praising for their effort. And we're also acknowledging like, this is hard. Oh, emotions are big and emotions can sometimes feel scary and out of control. We're just validating that their experience is so valid and praising their effort to try, even though it's hard. And change, of course, as you know, does not happen overnight. But the more we can just praise, 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 and thank them for their efforts, the better it'll be. And again, these types of skills take years to develop, and we see them fluctuate through different developmental stages of their lives. But they grow these abilities through the support of their parents and their adults in their life, their teachers, their administrators, and social workers, student support specialists. So they grow these skills through guidance, patience, and consistent practice at school and at home. And you don't even know, like the small supportive steps really do make a huge difference. So that being said, I know we're running a little short on time, but it made me think of like small steps lead to bigger change. I would love for you to write in the chat, take a moment. What are some strategies that you have used in your home to promote these skills? So maybe there's something we didn't talk about, but you want to share out with other parents. We would love for you to also share out your expertise as parents in the front lines of doing this with your children. Or what is maybe a skill that you have picked up from today that you would like to try? Or if anyone feels bold enough to unmute, we would love to hear from you. But I know some of it might be lunch hour, you're in shared offices.
Mhm.
Everyone must be typing up a storm. They're like,
Hi, this is Angela. I would just like to say thank you so much for the explanation on the bubbles and kind of like blowing those out. And that when we take the time to like, blow, it's, intentionally that really, results in something. I think that I'm going to use that with my son. I'm super excited to try that. And it just gave me a good idea too, even with like, I'm actually coaching a woman right now and I was trying to help her understand like the deep breathing process. And I had used the, you're blowing out a birthday candle example. But I like this bubbles because I think that it gives it even just that deeper explanation of like, when we take the time to do it slowly, the effectiveness plays out and gives us rewards back.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. It really helps with that visual reminder. And it just, yeah, reinforces them even more because they're like, what do you mean deep breathing helps? I already breathe to stay alive. Or it's like, no, trust me, it's different. We're doing it in a different way and it helps. So thank you for sharing that.
There's a lot of fun ones too. I really like the candle blowing out one is a really great one. We also like to do soup breathing. I've done that before. And that's where you describe your favorite soup. And they actually have to stop and think about all the different parts of the soup that they love. So if it's like chicken noodle soup, they're like, oh, I see celery in my soup, and I see carrots in my soup, and noodles. And that actually stops to pause their brain where they're thinking about something else, and then they have to hold the soup and smell the soup, and you breathe in and then you blow out, and that's been a really fun one as well.
Oh, I like that
Different
one.
ways. Yeah, very creative.
Hi.
Stephanie, oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh, hi, it's Izzy. So for me, sometimes my daughter and I will go to the beach right after school if we can. We'll take coloring books and it just kind of changes the scene. And then it kind of gives her a little bit of space to just kind of move on from school before we do homework, right? And provides, I think, kind of like a nice, calm environment for us to just chat, or she can tell me whatever she wants. And I think that's a really nice way for her to kind of deregulate a little bit. And then we also play the five senses game sometimes where I'll say, I don't remember exactly how it goes, but we just do it like, hey, name five things you can see, name four things you can hear, name three things you can smell, name two things you can touch, things like that. And it really is like a fun game you can play anywhere. It doesn't have, I mean, the beach is amazing, but you can play it anywhere. And it really just helps bring her back to being in the present moment. So not worrying about what had happened before in the day and not worrying about what's going to happen later. It just brings her to the present moment, which is so helpful. And I obviously really enjoy it too, because we all need it.
We all need it. I love that. That's a perfect moment to pause because there's so much where like with kids, the purpose of the pause is their emotions are going 150 miles per hour and these things stack up. Maybe one thing upset them and then two other things upset them. And then by the end of the day, they're going to explode. So if we take a moment and catch it when it's right here, it's going to bring us back down here. So having that check-in after school is like perfect reset. So I can like move on with the rest of my day with just a little bit of weight off my chest.
Yeah.
And we're so lucky to be by the beach, so why not utilize it?
Yes.
Exactly.
I think Morgan wanted to
Yeah,
share
I
as
was
well if you want to.
okay, perfect. Okay, can you all hear me? All right. I had to take my
Yes.
mic out. Yeah, no, I find it always interesting. So I have one kiddo who like needs to unload everything that happens. So like pausing after school when I get him in the car is like not a choice. Um, like he needs to unload everything and I allow him to do that. And then my other kiddo needs to like relax and calm and like have that pause. So like being able to be like, I'm pretty open. Everyone's watching me pretty open with my kids, like, hey, mom's had a hard day. Like what do you need? Um, like right when they get in the car. So I like kind of let them, or when they get off the bus, like, what do you need? Or they've gotten pretty good about like, mom, I need a break. Or like, those kind of things. They've been maybe because I'm modeling it, I don't know. I'm like, dude, mom's overwhelmed today. Like, I'm pretty open with my kids about how I'm feeling or how my day was. So they've started to kind of do that too, like, mom, oh, I need this, or but yeah, I think it's just like talking to your kids because I have one kid that if you told him like, oh, you should take a break, that would be bad. So like he needs to unload everything. and show me everything and tell me everything about every child at school. So like that, you know, just giving those and like self-reflecting, but also being honest with yourself. Like if you're having a bad day, like, hey, oh, I'm having a bad day. It's hard for me to listen today or whatever. But yeah. And also the read the zones. Beautiful work. Beautiful work. You know, I like literally put my hands up and like as if I'm flipping the lid and my kids like stop. So highly recommend. I know some people haven't taken it, but if you learn about the zones that your kids are learning about at school, it's pretty using it at home is phenomenal when they're dysregulated. So
And if you ever, like guys, all of you, if you ever want these resources, we're absolutely happy to share them out with you too. Just go ahead and send us an email to me like, I want more information on the zones, or maybe there was a specific thing that you really resonated with and want to hear a little bit more. We're happy to send that over to you as well. I know we are very, we're big talkers, both of us, Miss Amelia and I, so we don't necessarily have a ton of time for that Q&A today. So what we're going to do instead is we have a lot of the question that you guys sent in with your RSVP. What we're going to do is we're going to type out some really thoughtful answers for you guys. And then when we email you that video of today's presentation, we'll go ahead and email you the list of the Q&A questions. And then if before we log off, if you guys had any questions, please send them in the chat and we'll write them down, and we can also include those in our next session as well. And the next session we have will be on Tuesday, December 9th. And that session is specifically going to focus on focus and memory. So recall and all that great stuff. So we hope to see you guys then. And then we also have on here our contact information. And you're welcome to email both of us, or if there's site specific questions, go ahead and email whoever is your site person. So we'll take questions there. If you want more specific information, please reach out to us. We're absolutely happy to support. And then we also have our information for the Family Resource Center on there as well, which is another great point of contact.
Great, thank you, everybody. I'm loving to read everyone's comments on the chat. So thank you for keeping in touch with us, and we're excited to see you at the next one.
thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.